Hello everybody, welcome back to the latest session. I hope you're all enjoying yourselves. I'm here with Kezia Luckett. Hello Kezia, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be here. It's been phenomenal over the last day.
Have you been watching?
I've been able to dip in and out. I was in an all-day meeting yesterday, so when I've had an opportunity to break, it's like, oh, quick.
Well, you can definitely look play as well, which I think are going to be available for a week. So yeah, that's definitely what I'm going to be doing, is dipping back in with my pen and pad and catching up on everything I've not been able to really give my full attention to. But welcome everybody, and welcome to Kezia. I'm very excited to have you here. We are going to be talking today about following your intuition and building a business with purpose, which is just very exciting. Kezia is an amazing lady. She's very recently become an Amazon best-selling author for your book, the Pay It Forward series, Notes to My Younger Self. You're a positive psychologist, soon to be positive. You're a positive coach, soon to be positive psychologist. Excuse me. Yes. And you're also CEO of Women of Contribution. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do now?
Of course. Well, as you say, I'm a positive psychology coach, so I tend to work with, I do work with just females, females that are either transformational leaders, so they're out there, they're inspiring others, they're trying to get contribution and purpose out to the world, or those women that have got to that stage in their life where actually they know that they were put on this planet to do something more, but they're not really sure what that more is. So that's what I do on a coaching perspective. And then I also, as you said, run the Women of Contribution movement, which was started towards the end of last year, which is all about providing a safe haven really for women to come and get the support and the resources and network that they need to be able to leave an impactful footprint on the world and share their gifts with the world, because absolutely every woman out there is a woman of contribution, whether they know it or not.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's such a powerful message. It's given me a little bit of goosebumps there, actually. But you've got a really fantastic story yourself, because as recently as life was very different for you, and I think it's a bit of a kind of a burnout and reinvention type story, which I think a lot of people could relate to. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are now? Because it's really fantastic story.
Of course. Well, originally I was in pharmaceuticals and cardiology. And when I was pregnant with my second child, I got something called symphysis pubis dysfunction, which is really painful. It's where your pelvis starts to come apart. And anybody that's gone through it will know the agony that's involved in it. And at the time, I needed somebody to come in and help around the house. And all the agencies that I contacted wouldn't do all the things that I needed to do. So anyway, I got on with it. I was given a copy of The Secret just after giving birth to my son. And for many people, I think The Secret was the start of their journey. And for me, most definitely, it's about self-development. And I got it on CD format, and I remember putting it in the car and driving off to one of the hospitals, and it was like a 2-hour drive. And I ended up having to pull to the side of the road because it was like somebody had switched on a light or turned up the brightness on the world. Everything seemed to be in Technicolor. And it was just like, oh my goodness, there is more to life than what I can currently see right here, right now. So I was taken by a particular guy called John Assaraf, and I got one of his books called The Answer, and I started going through it. It's kind of like a workbook thing. And there was a bit about starting a business, and I remember literally my son had always been a good sleeper, and we had 2 weeks where he wasn't sleeping at night at all, and every night I'd get back into bed and think, I'm missing something, I'm sure I'm missing something. And on the last night I thought, I know what it is. And the following day I sat down and mapped out that I would set up a female-based concierge company to be able to help women in later stages of pregnancy, or those that had just given birth, similar to me. But the universe has other ideas, and within 6 months I was inundated by corporate female professionals who needed to juggle the work-life balance And so the business naturally took on, a world of its own. And it grew dramatically from 5 members of staff up to 35 in the space of 5 years. And that was absolutely fantastic. It was great to be able to help these women with washing and ironing and food shopping and dinner preparation and childcare and all of those things.
Incredible.
But in the process, I became one of those women. I became totally overwhelmed. I ended up working an 80-hour work week. I didn't look after myself. I was probably at the lowest. Well, actually, I wasn't even on my list of priorities. My clients and my staff and my family and my friends and all of those things came before me. And then one day I was with my business coach and she just said, I don't think your business is making you happy anymore. And I remember all the words that came out of my mouth were kind of, no, it's my baby. I've been doing it for 5 years and all of this. And on the train back home, I sat down and I was thinking, I don't know. And I walked in through the door and the family was sitting there having dinner and they were 3 instead of 4. And I sat down and I was telling my husband what was going on. And my little boy just went, Mummy, you're always so grumpy. And anybody that's got children will know it just breaks your heart. And I was just like, no, I'm burnt out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed. I'm not enjoying my business anymore. I love serving women, but it's not my passion. It's the right thing to do, but the wrong vehicle to do it. And I walked away from the business and spent 6 months trying to rediscover who I was and what I wanted and what my purpose and my passion was.
So it's a really, I think it's a very familiar story that a lot of the ladies listening here will be able to relate to, that, you get this business idea and you're doing something that you're really passionate about, but before you know it takes everything over and what's important actually gets lost. And it really does often take an outside source to say, hang on, have a look, because you're so caught up in this overwhelm that you can't see the woods for the trees, basically. So what was your next step then to get out?
It was interesting because, like I say, I kind of spent 6 months just going, well, who am I? What do I like? And I spent about 6 to 8 weeks just rediscovering who I was. And the very first program that I wrote was called Simply You, and it was really about the basics, about getting back to who I was. And some of those basic things, I'm sure most entrepreneurs or women in business that are snowed under will understand what it feels like when you're so busy you don't eat, you don't even go to the toilet, you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning with an idea and you start working. That was me, and it was just like I'd forgotten the basic fundamentals. And one of the things that I rediscovered is my business, like most people's, is a representation of me. If I'm burnt out, if I'm in overwhelm, then I can't give to anybody else. So that was my main focus the first 8 weeks. And then it was like, well, what have I always wanted to do? If fear wasn't an option, if I could do absolutely anything, what would I like to do? And I discovered in my early 20s that I was really good at learning. I did my degree in America, and I thought, you know what? I've always loved psychology. I'd really like to go and learn about psychology. Why don't I do a master's? And then this little voice in my head was going, well, you're in your 40s, you're probably getting a bit too old to do your master's. Have you really got time to do your master's? And it's just like, no, I'm going to do it. And then a series of events led me to doing a master's in positive psychology. And then I began to look at the business that I'd had previously. And one of the things that I saw a lot of with the women that we served was they had absolutely everything that you could possibly want from a material perspective of what success looked like. They were really high up in their careers. They'd done amazing things. They had the house and the kids in the private school and the clothes and the holidays. But a lot of them were looking, and I was speaking to them, a lot of them were unfulfilled. And it's just like, that's what I need to be doing. I'm meant to be working with women. How exciting would it be to work with women and actually help them to discover their true purpose? Because we all go through this period, and especially kind of like the midlife period from 35 to 55 tends to be this period where we move from what society expects us to do to what we were put on this planet to do. And that's where I got to. And so that's why I decided, you know what? I'm going to work with those types of women that need to discover their purpose, because it's so exciting and liberating when you do.
Well, it's just like you were saying, so you had to take this step back, and you knew that your purpose was working with women and helping women, but you had kind of done that, but it wasn't how you were supposed to be doing it, and you found your way. And one of the things you said to me when we spoke before is that once you find your true purpose, it's just so incredible the things that then it leads to, you know, all these amazing things suddenly come your way. So tell me, so this is what you now do, and you work with ladies and you teach them how to find their purpose. So what are the steps that we can take to start, you know, actually pinpointing what it is? Because it's a bit overwhelming to think, oh gosh, I've now got to find a purpose. But there are steps that you take people through. Could you just explain them a little bit?
Of course. Now, most of the clients that I work with, I always recommend that they understand what the basics of getting back to them is all about, because unless their bucket's full, how on earth can you go out and serve and contribute to the world in the way that you're meant to? So that's number one, is actually focusing on this. And we hear a lot about self-care, but self-care is far more than just massage and, you know, manicure here and there. It should become a way of life. And whether you're a mum or you're in business or you're working for somebody else, in order to be the best you that you can possibly be, you need to be able to, you know, top your bucket up first. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I tend to do with a lot of women is that there's a process that I take women through called Map Your Past to Create a Better Future. And it's really looking at those pivotal moments throughout the whole of your life, from birth until now, but also looking at the heritage. So your mum and dad's, their life, maybe even taking it back to the grandparents and mapping their pivotal moments, because normally you will start to see a blueprint written in your past as to what those experiences have been building you up to. And that's one of the things that I took the women through that were part of the book, is understanding how those key pivotal moments are actually building you up for something far greater coming up in the future.
So it's not, because actually I think I misunderstood it. So it's not about, you know, mistakes that you've lost and the way they've kind of blocked you. It's more about how they've made you grow.
Exactly. I mean, I'm a great believer that those pivotal moments in our past that we often think make us small, or we don't want to share, or we worry about people finding out, those are the ones that really are the ones that should be shared, because they are the building blocks to getting you where you're meant to be. And if we can go back to them and actually look at them with fresh eyes, because the way that the brain stores memories is quite complicated. We often think that, you know, we store a memory and that's it. But it's not. We store a memory based on the lens of that moment in time. So if we're feeling overwhelmed, then that memory, yes, it might have been a stressful situation, but it's more likely to be stored with overwhelm on top of it. This lens of what stress and overwhelm looks like. But when we take a memory and we pull it from our memory bank, we're not recalling the original memory. We're recalling the memory of the last time we pulled that memory. So if we reframe the way that we look at that memory, we can change the way that we perceive it. And when we start to change it and look at it from a learning perspective, of a building block, of things that we need to go through in order to be able to be the person that we're meant to be, it changes the whole way that we can view those kind of difficult life experiences. And that's what our book shows, you know, the Pay It Forward Notes to My Younger Self book. It's about taking those pivotal moments and changing the interpretation of them.
Please do chat in the chat box as we go along and ask questions, because I'm going to be keeping an eye on it, Kezia, as we go. Let me know what you think about the whole idea of finding your purpose. I'd love to know whether you feel that you have found your purpose or whether you need some help in identifying it. That's really interesting, actually, because I don't know whether you managed to catch any of what Tara was saying just in the session before you, but I've noticed in all these talks there are all so many common threads that run through it. And one of the things that came up in Tara's talk is the whole idea about sharing your failures, or sharing the things that make you feel vulnerable, and people being terrified of doing that because you are viewing it from that kind of failure point of view, as opposed to looking at it from the what I have learnt from this and how I have grown from it point of view. And it's a very empowering thing to do.
Incredibly empowering. Yeah. And actually, the book went live on Monday, and we've already started getting messages from women and men, surprisingly, saying, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much for sharing that." And it's been a kind of Me Too type. Yes, that's happened to me too. And yes, I've never thought of it like that. And actually, if we can use those experiences to empower and inspire the people to know that actually where they are right now is not where the story ends, it's just the start, it changes absolutely everything.
Have there been any kind of common themes running through in the kind of correspondence you've had that you found, and the kind of experiences people have had and been able to kind of reframe the way they look at things and move forward?
From people that have been reading the stories, you mean?
Yes, from the people coming to you.
From the perspective of people reading the book and coming out, obviously it was only on Monday that it went live, so we've only got a small amount. But the common theme is that actually it's been incredibly helpful. It's made them understand more about themselves, also understand that they're not alone in the situation, because quite often we kind of think, oh, it's embarrassing to tell because nobody's ever failed, because we don't talk about our failures. Or nobody's ever gone through that, because again, we don't talk about those things. I mean, for example, one of the ladies that contributed to the book, she is based in America, and although she only touches on it in the book, she lost just over $1 million through internet fraud dating. And initially she kept that silent for a very, very long time because she was embarrassed, you know. She'd been in the RAF, she'd been in the banks working on the fraud squad, and she was just like, what will people think? But actually, let's change the way that we think. It's not about what other people think. If you can just help one person feel that actually somebody else understands, that's all that matters. And that's really what being a woman of contribution is about. It's, you know, it's finding those ways that you can contribute to the world, and the story is a perfect way that we can contribute to the world and help and empower and inspire other people.
And the thing that you're very passionate about is that every woman does have a purpose, and that once they find it, I mean, because I think a lot of people feel very confused by all of this and just think, well, I'm not really sure I need to have a business to make money. I'm not really, you know, is there a way of, is my passion really going to turn into anything that's going to support me? And I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
My true belief is that absolutely every woman on this planet can contribute in the way that only they know how. And their past experiences, the people that they've bumped into, the conversations that they've had, everything builds them up to being the person that they are right here, right now. The way that you contribute to the world is going to be so different from one woman to the next. It may be that your contribution is to be an absolutely phenomenal mum. It may be that your contribution is to be a phenomenal wife. It may be that your contribution is to share your beautiful pictures of art or photography or needlecraft. Not everybody necessarily has to be out there going, right, I'm going to be a leader. In actual fact, most of the leaders that I know, they're reluctant leaders. They've kind of been pushed forward because people behind them have gone, you really should be out there and singing about this. So it is difficult. I think the thing is just start to look at what makes your heart sing. And we live in such a busy world, to actually take time out to think is sometimes quite difficult because we have 101 things that need to be done. And, you know, kids that need to be fed and shopping that needs to be done and businesses and clients and all of these things. So it's finding that quiet time and just taking time out to really reconnect to who you are. And being in nature is one of the best ways to do that, because it reconnects us back into our feminine and our intuition. And when we start to release some of this control, I mean, anybody that knows me will know that I was a complete and utter control freak. I still am to a certain degree, but it's a lot better than it was. When we release this control, it just makes life so much easier for not only our purpose to come in, but also these amazing opportunities. And what's happened in my life over the last year is just a prime example of that.
Yeah, I think I always love that Ralph Waldo Emerson quote about once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. It's that you don't have to worry about how you're going to get there. You just have to take the first step. And that first step is, you know, perhaps sometimes opening your mind to the possibilities that could be out there. Just had a comment from Hannah. What's interesting is how we perceive by changing direction that we are starting again. Very scary and brave when we are in fact building on prior experience. Exactly, that's exactly it. So another big part of what you want to talk about today is intuition. And I think that's something, I think women are quite good at using their intuition, but perhaps we don't use it as much as we should, or maybe we're too busy worrying about what our head says than actually following it, even though we can hear it, but we don't necessarily do anything about it. What were your thoughts on intuition, and how has using intuition changed your life?
Well, intuition is one of the key areas that I focused on when I left my first company, because I believe that it's a really strong tool in our tool chest as women, because when we reconnect to intuition, it does tend to be incredibly strong. And there are a variety of different ways that you can do it. Nature for me is really one of the key things, is getting out into nature, whatever that looks like for you. The other one is getting into a state of flow. So the easiest way to describe it is if you think of something that you absolutely love doing, where actually 5 hours seems to disappear in 2 seconds, that's you being in a state of flow. So finding those things that get you into that state of flow and understanding how quickly you can turn your body into that state is fantastic. For me, a prime example is on Boxing Day 2016. I woke up early after Christmas, probably like many people, or not like many people, depending on how heavy your Christmas was. And I went for a walk. It was pouring with rain, it was cold. I remember putting on my wet weather jacket and my welly boots, and literally as I started walking, I started being bombarded with images and words and questions, and I've had some of this coming through in the past, but I was too busy, so I kind of shoved it to one side and ignored it. But this time I was just like, do you know what? This has to stop. My mind is just literally being bombarded. So I went home, sat in front of the computer, and started to type, and my fingers had a world of their own. They just kind of type. And at the end of an hour, not only did I have the idea for the book, the Pay It Forward series, Notes to My Younger Self, but also the Women of Contribution movement too. And from then, the magic just started to happen, because I was brave enough to tell people about Notes to My Younger Self, and the response that I got was absolutely phenomenal. And before I know it, people were being drawn in, and I ended up with 18 absolutely phenomenal women from around the world who've been really brave in bearing their soul and their vulnerability to be able to help other women. But then other things started happening. So I won £20,000 worth of coaching, which allowed me to be able to focus on what the business needed. I ended up being invited to appear in a documentary series in San Diego. So I flew to San Diego to film a documentary for transformational change makers, and 6 of the ladies that were in the book were introduced to me during that time period. So I met them, which was absolutely phenomenal. Then somebody put me in contact with Marie Diamond from The Secret, you know, this thing that had set off my journey. And here I was, you know, communication with Marie Diamond. And not only that, she agreed to write the foreword for our book. And I was just like, oh my goodness, can things get any better? And then one of the women said, I think I've got contact details for Marcy Shymoff, who is co-author of Chicken Soup of the Soul, who also starred in The Secret. So we sent off an email to her saying, would you be willing to endorse the book? She read some of the chapters and she was like, yes, most definitely. So we ended up with an endorsement from her. And it just literally a series of events where in my previous business, it often felt like pushing water uphill. I mean, very often, though it's successful, you know, for every step I took forward, I felt like I'd taken 25 back. In this, it's just been one thing after another, after another, after another. And I'm sitting here going like, wow, is this really happening? And that's the joy of listening to that inner calling, listening to your intuition, and when these things happen, taking action, because it's really scary sometimes to think, oh, I don't know. And, you know, there's an amazing lady called Sammy Blendell, and she was the lady that did some coaching with me. And I was so frightened to share the book and get it out there. And, you know, even though I was getting a good response, and she was just like, seriously, what are you doing? And she was my biggest supporter. She kind of pushed me along every step of the way, going, right, you know, this woman, let me introduce you to this woman, and let me introduce you to this woman. And then before I know it, hey presto, we ended up with 18 phenomenal women. And originally I'd set a target of 20, but it just kept slipping back down to 18. And that was when I was like, okay, the universe is trying to tell me 18 is the number. So yeah, it's just about being open and being receptive.
Oh, I just love stories like this, because actually I, like you, I read The Secret and it just changed my way. I mean, actually it just brought everything into such clarity for me, and it just made me think, oh my gosh, of course. And this is why, and it's funny, actually, it made me look in a very similar way to what you've been recommending people do, looking back at pivotal times in my life and how it has set me off into different directions, which is such a powerful tool to use. Actually understanding how you've got to where you are is such a powerful tool. And I just love these stories about the law of attraction and the universe, because it is true. And I've found also in my life that, you know, when you do start listening to those little pulls you have and actually acting on it, rather than thinking, right, I'm too busy today, I can't do that, or you think about it and then you forget about it because you're too busy. When you actually do act on these things, the snowball effect of where it leaves you, you know, you go down this rabbit hole and you find yourself in Wonderland, quite literally. It's just amazing, and it's so inspiring. I don't know if any of the people listening have had any similar experiences when they start, you know, going with their gut and using their intuition. I'd love to hear from you if you have, because it's such a fascinating subject. So for anyone who was in the position that you were in, kind of, was it 2 years ago, whenever you were kind of feeling completely frazzled and burnt out and not really knowing what you wanted to do, what would your advice be to do? What would your first steps to kind of finding that clarity be, and kind of opening yourself up to finding that purpose?
I think it all starts with you, because we tend to look externally when we're looking for answers. And actually most of the answers that we could ever want are within ourselves. We just need to find them. And when you're in overwhelm, when you're stressed, when you're feeling confused and all of those things, what tends to happen is people tend to look externally and they go searching for people or books or whatever, which is great. But actually, my first bit of advice would be is take that step back. Actually spend some time with yourself. And like I've said before, is just really filling up that bucket, because it's really difficult to be able to give to anybody if you haven't given to yourself first. And I think this is a character trait of women. I'm not saying it's not in men, but it tends to be quite strong in women. We give until we have nothing left to give. And that's when the stress and the overwhelm and all of those things tend to kick in. So my first priority for anybody would be is focus on yourself. You know, make sure that you're hydrated, make sure that you're eating well, make sure you're sleeping well. I mean, that sleep sleep deprivation, as soon as you lack of sleep, and I know it's difficult if you've got little ones, but that lack of sleep, it's like trying to do work when you're drunk. It's just horrendous. So just the basics, and once you've started the basics of taking care of yourself, then you can start to listen to that inner calling, because we need that stillness, we need that silence to be able to hear. And we're not going to find that by filling every moment of our day with busyness.
Okay. So tell me about Women of Contribution as well, because that's obviously one of your big projects, and I'd love to find out more about it and what you do and why you do it, and you know who it's for.
Well, it's for absolutely every woman, because as I said before, I believe that absolutely every woman on this planet can leave an impactful footprint. It started off as a Facebook group, and it still is a Facebook group at the moment. But the plan is that we will build a safe space where women can come, they can put their ideas out there, and they can be supported. I think we're moving away from a place where women are competing constantly, and we're moving to a place of collaboration, which is what the book kind of demonstrated, what happens when 18 women come together with one aim in mind. And our one aim was to impact on 1 billion lives worldwide. So it's a case of coming to a safe space, being able to share without judgment, without criticism, without fear or worry, and actually help each other in business, help each other in life, help each other with health and wealth and well-being, and actually allow women to develop and experience their authentic self. Because once you know what that is contribution enough. You know, as long as you are authentically you, you're already contributing to the world. You know, all you've got to do is ask your family or your friends or people around you. You are already contributing to the world. And it's just making sure that we can help you do more of that. So if you have that burning desire that you want to set up a business, then we can help support and guide you and point you in the right direction of resources. And if not, we can share experiences and stories and all of those wonderful things that tend to happen when women come together in a nice group.
So so it's a really good place to start. Anyone who's listening to this talk and wanting some guidance on finding their purpose and finding about what they can contribute, it's a really good thing to join, and a good place to get the support you need to do that. And it's funny because you're reading up a lot about the whole kind of law of attraction thing. It's the whole idea that the universe wants you to be your authentic self, wants you to be your true self, and as a result, and when you do that, amazing things can happen, which is so exciting. When you look back on where you were and where you are now, I mean, it must feel quite incredible how far you've come.
It was a bit of a dream. I mean, 7 months ago, myself and my family moved to Barcelona. So not only do we have the lovely weather, which I have in the UK, although it's been a little cold. I mean, I think it's 17 today, so it's not overly hot. Well, I'm bearing up under the pressure. Yeah, I mean, look, we moved here, we've set up a new life. I can work anywhere in the world. The women that I'm being introduced to, I think I wrote in my chapter of the book, I could never, ever imagine for 1 minute, not only would I have been introduced to these women, but I could learn from and also share my experience with these women to be able to help those coming up from behind me and stretch a hand up above me to have women help me to get where, I believe I need to go in order to be able to serve the world. It's so, well, it makes me speechless. One of the ladies in the book, Barbara Brown, she would say, I'm moving into the realm of the miraculous, and she is so right. I never, ever, if somebody had said to my younger self when I was 14 and going through bullying that not only in my 45th year I would be living in Barcelona, but I would have been a published author, a best-selling author, that I would have set up a worldwide movement, that I would be contributing in the way that I know to the world, and I would be happy with myself, because my bullying was focused on the way that I looked. And I spent many, many, many years absolutely detesting my body and the way that I looked. And actually, I now love it. It's my home in this lifetime, and it's the only home that I've been given. So I've got to appreciate it. So yeah, I don't think I could ever have imagined how miraculous my life would have been right here, right now, based on a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's so inspiring for anyone who is perhaps in a career or a situation that just doesn't feel right for them. Because when you look back and think you started out in pharmaceuticals, I mean, you couldn't have a more bigger turnaround. It's so strange, and you didn't realize, I'm assuming, you never really had a particularly strong calling, but your overwhelming need was to work with women, and you just didn't know how it was going to look. And it's funny how we all become conditioned by the paths we set ourselves, the paths we start on, we feel like we have to stick to. And it takes a real shift, or somebody, actually telling you, or a big crisis actually, where you're feeling burnt out and can't cope, for us to realize it. And it's a bit of a shame actually that it has to take that. I mean, do you think it always has to take a quite a big crisis for you to kind of reassess and realize that you're on the wrong path, or can it be a little bit more gentle?
I think it can be a little more gentle. I would say that the biggest problem for most people, and definitely for myself, is you don't watch out for the warning signs. So when I got pneumonia and was in bed for 6 weeks, I didn't see the warning signs. When I recovered from that and got food poisoning straight away, I didn't see the warning signs. When I would be in meetings, team meetings, and I had the most phenomenal team in pharmaceuticals, but when I'd be sat there and I could feel this inner person inside of me just screaming at me, just walk out the door, what on earth are you doing? This doesn't align with any bit of you anymore. And I'd just be stuffing it down and going, be quiet, I've got a mortgage to pay, and I've got children to feed, and I've got bills to pay. But that internal part of me was just screaming. I mean, the amount of times that I remember sitting in meetings and just thinking, I've just got to be careful that what's going on in my head is not coming out of my mouth, because they're going to think I'm absolutely crazy. But there were warning signs, and I didn't listen to them, because I'd been conditioned by society to be a good girl, to get a job, to pay for a house, to pay for the holidays, to pay for the bills. And actually what my authentic self needed to feel fulfilled and to, really understand my true purpose didn't matter, because I was following the path of society. And then, like I say, I came to that midlife period where many people come from doing the societal path to coming up to thinking, well, actually, I'm midlife now. It's not that far until the other end of my life. Is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? So I think start listening to the signs and signals that you're already getting, because the universe will keep pushing, and it will keep pushing really hard until you actually listen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the sad thing, actually. I think there's so many people sitting in jobs and going to jobs every day. I did it for a time, that they hate to their core, and it's just making them ill, or it's making them so unhappy. But they feel that, well, what's the option? You have to go to work, you have to have a job, you have to earn money. But I suppose and we're not saying everyone should go in and resign tomorrow and wonder how they should pay the bills next week. But what we're saying is, if you're feeling like that, there is another purpose. There is something that you're meant to be doing, and you have to open yourself up to find it. And I think the other thing that I always find fascinating is that, you don't have to, when I left school, this is the jobs you can do, but the job you perhaps are going to create doesn't exist. Maybe nobody else is doing it yet. And it's so inspiring and empowering idea to think that you can create that position for yourself. You can be CEO of your new field. And yeah, that's really inspiring. Do you find that is the case, that a lot of people are finding they don't fit in to categories, and therefore are they're carving out a a niche that suits them.
Yes, they do. And I was just laughing at what you were saying about being at school, because when I was at school many moons ago, we had to fill out a questionnaire. And at the end of the questionnaire, it told you the types of jobs that you could do. And I was rubbish in school. I mean, I'm doing a master's now, but I was absolutely rubbish in school. I wasn't inspired. And my end result was a dustbin lady. And I just think, oh, I wonder what would happen if I'd gone down that path, which was something completely different. I know it does worry people. I know my little girl, I mean, she's 12 now, she's not so little. But about 2 years ago, I remember trying to tuck her into bed, and she was there with her notepad and pen and very serious face. And I said, well, what are you doing? And she said, I need to work out what job I'm going to do. And I said, oh, okay, why? And she said, well, I need to know so that, you know, I can start planning. And I'm just thinking, okay, I don't really know where you've got this from. Probably it's something at school. And I said to her, Mummy can honestly say that she's probably done 25 different jobs. You know, some of them might only have been for a couple of weeks when I was in my teens, but I did so many jobs, and each one layered on top of the next for me to work out what I loved and what I didn't love.
Yeah.
And I said to her, don't worry, just write down absolutely every job that you think you might want to do. And I came back to go to bed myself, and she was still there. She hadn't turned off a light. And I think she had 25 pages of different jobs that she thought she was going to do. Like, great, just go through your list and try it. And if you don't like it, then, you know, move on.
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing, you know, try it, move on. And if you find a calling to go, do you know what, I wonder if this could be created, then do it. I mean, positive psychology is a prime example of that. You know, Martin Seligman said, well, enough's enough. Let's not focus on what's wrong with people anymore. Let's focus on what's right. Yeah. And psychology's been around for 10 years now. I mean, you have to change these things. One of the ladies in my book, she's Laura Chappelli, she's created Heart Core Body, which is a mix of Kundalini Yoga and Pilates. And, you know, her first initial thought was, well, you know, the sacred part of Kundalini Yoga. And I just thought, well, how did Pilates come about? And how did this come about? And how did that come about? People took the best of what they could see and merged them together. And that's what we can do with jobs. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and I will stress on it because I think it's quite an important point, is, you know, we don't want people to just go out tomorrow and hand in their notice. When you're setting up a business and you're setting up a business from a place of fear, then the business can't succeed. And I would honestly say to any woman that's looking to set up a business and move away from, you know, a quote unquote normal job from 9 to 5, is have a plan in place. You know, whether that plan is going down part-time, whether it's saying, right, 6 months, I'm going to get myself a buffer to sit behind me when in the first 6 months of business. You need to have a plan, because if you don't, fear will overtake and it will have a detrimental effect on the business.
Yeah. Actually, that's something I'm just Hannah, I see your comment and I'm going to read it in a second, but before I forget, it's something that I've noticed come up a lot is this whole, you know, if you want to get a coach and the coach says, oh, you will find the money if you can afford, if you're, you know, and it'll be beneficial. And I can kind of see what they mean by it, but it is the difference. It's about whether you're finding the money through a place of fear or whether you're finding a money through a place of knowing that this is the thing for you, and you know it's going to make an enormous difference. And yeah, so that's what I was going to say. But Hannah, you're saying it's all very inspiring. Thank you. I think I'm finding it very inspiring. Your big crisis was being woken up 3 times a night every night until my boy was 4. Oh gosh, and trying to be a head of art, but I was so tied to my students and not letting people down. In the end, I did leave. It's the best thing I ever did. Though I love teaching, so I'll probably be back in that in another capacity. We teach at school now that every student will have 4 jobs in their lifetime and half of them have not been invented yet. That's really good advice. And it's true, leaving a job behind is such a liberating experience. You can feel like it's a failure maybe, and that's why you fight not doing it. But, you know, I think maybe we've all done that, and it's just incredible. And Christina says, support groups for women is really in demand right now. in this world of so many Facebook ads with all businesses that are successful by automation. Yeah, the support groups. They're just. I just think they're such an amazing thing. Things like Women of Contribution. It's. We were talking about it yesterday. Actually, I was talking about it yesterday about starting up my own business, having this support network of women around me who are experiencing what I'm experiencing, and they're so giving as well, and people are offering so much for, with no agenda, not wanting anything back. Wonderful community to be part of. Yes, I think everyone's saying they're good parts of women's group. Really, Lindsay's saying amazing session, really touched me. I know my purpose. I just need to see how to incorporate it. So that's quite a good point. So if you know your purpose, but how do you identify how? I mean, obviously it came to you quite intuitively how it was going to work for you. But what if you know your purpose, but you haven't quite identified how you move forward to it? Is there any advice on that?
Obviously, when you find your purpose, it's understanding what vehicle you're going to drive to be able to get it out there to the world. And I think it was Christina that said that there's so many Facebook ads with all businesses that are successful by automation. That's all well and good if that's what you like doing. I mean, for me personally, I like the one-on-one. I like looking into somebody's eyes, even if it's over Skype or Zoom, and seeing those aha moments come up in their head. So automation is great. It's a great way to earn money, but for me, it's not what gives me that heart sing. So the thing that I would say to Lindsay is that it's about understanding those aspects that make your heart sing. There are lots of different ways you can bring a business to light. So is it that I suppose it also depends what business it is. I'm just having a quick look. Lindsay was the lady who liked art, so maybe this is an art thing. If so, there are lots of different ways that you can incorporate that in. I mean, if you want to drop it down, Lindsay, I'm more than happy to give you some suggestions. But if Lindsay was looking to do art, it depends on who they were doing art with. For example, I know a lady that set up a little mail order company where each month children were mailed out a brightly coloured envelope with craft activities inside it. And it just meant that, each month they had something that they could look forward to. It had their name on it, so they felt that they had ownership. And that was the bit that she loved doing. She also did craft sessions where she could look into children's eyes and see the enjoyment. So it really depends on what's making your heart sing. There are lots of different ways that you can run a business, but I think we're being inundated with women and men who said, look at how I made $50 billion overnight by, sitting on a chair drinking champagne, which is great, but that's not for everybody. So I think it's looking at no, exactly. What
Christina says, how do you suggest starting a community online and finding loving women?
For me, the women, obviously I had a big network anyway. So what I did was tell people that I was doing, ask them, invite them into your groups. Don't automatically invite them, because that will automatically lose you friends. And then ask them to invite other like-minded women in. For me, I started to get more and more people in. And one of the things that we do is I say, invite them in, let me honor them for the contribution that they make to your life. And people like that. They want to be able to pull their friends in, or people that they've worked with, or clients that have really made a difference to their lives. And we can honor them and, say thank you very much for, contributing to so-and-so's life. So I would start small, and the one thing I would say about your community, it's not about how many people you have in it. And I think this is a big mistake that most people make. They think, oh, I've got to have a gazillion people in there. No, it's about the organic growth of a group. It's about the quality of interactions that's going on. It's about the quality of support. You could have 2 people in your group and you could have the best supportive group ever. So don't worry about the numbers. People will start to find you, but then you can start sharing. Once you've got a couple of people in there, start sharing with other people, start sharing in some groups that you're in. If you think it's relevant to people, you know, maybe just message them and let them know. But people will find you.
We've only got a couple more minutes, but we've got another question. Oh, Christina asked, can we be part of your group? I think people can just...
Definitely. I will drop the website,
the link
in there.
And then another question, I love connecting one-to-one too. How do you suggest starting that, and where do you find these women? So is it similar to finding people in your group? I suppose once you've got people in your group, then you can start connecting one-to-one. I think also what we were saying about kind of the automated business models, you're not really, I don't think you're going to get that. I mean, it's all very well scale your business, and that's very important too, but you're not necessarily getting that kind of heart-centered, that connection, that fulfillment that you do get from working with people one-on-one and seeing the impact it has on them. Yes, it's been such a fantastic session, so inspiring. I feel very fired up now. It's been so lovely talking to you, Kezia. Just fantastic story, fantastic things you're doing. We'll give your book another minute. Pay It Forward series, Notes to My Younger Self by Kezia Luckett, and it's available on Amazon right now.
It's available on Kindle, and I will just say we're having a book launch, and there are tickets for the drinks reception. We have Marie Diamond from The Secret joining us, so if anybody wants to come along, I can drop the link down, but that's next Saturday, the 17th of March in London.
Oh wow, amazing, lovely. Yes, please do drop the link. I think actually if we put the links to your to the Women of Contribution, is it a Facebook group or is it a Facebook group? If you could put the link. Oh, there you go. Raymonda's onto it. And I think what we're also going to possibly do is maybe do a big group email with all the freebies that all the speakers are giving out, so everyone has everything in one place. I hope I haven't just invented that. I think that is what we're going to do. So, but yes, so that's the Facebook group / Women of Contribution. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Kezia. It's just been so lovely talking to you. I hope you can stick around and watch a few of the sessions, or dip in and dip out for the rest of the day. As I say, it's all recorded as well, so I think it's going to be available for the next week. And of course, it's all for charity. All our wonderful speakers are kind of donating their time for free, so we can give back to a really fantastic cause, which is Best Beginnings. And they work with families to give every child a good start in life, and it's often families with premature children, and helping them deal with all the challenges that come with that. So it's a really fantastic cause. Anyway, we're going to be back in a minute. It's going to be Raymonda with Dr. San Ludra, who's going to be talking about building a profitable business, which is be really fascinating, so don't miss that. Thanks again, Kezia. I hope to speak to you again soon. It's been wonderful. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you next session. Thanks. Bye-bye.